ask for Jay to come up and share with us as well. I just want to say before Jay comes up and I spotlight him, I've known Jay for several years. I've had the privilege of knowing Jay for several years. And every time I've sat down with him one-on-one, it's incredible how well-rounded and insightful his views are, and how well he knows his space. So I've always been, it's always been a pleasure to sit down with Jay whenever I've had 5 minutes, whether it's on camera or in person with him. I've always been very, very grateful. And I think the reason I'm glad to have him here for this quick 6-minute segment is that at least 4 of the developers on this call, if not about 7 or 8 that we've spoken to in the last few months, have all come up against contractor issues. I know several that are in mitigation at the moment, or litigation, should I say. There's several that are in have mediation cases open, and I know there's a few that's sort of on the brink, mainly around issues with their costs obviously rising, and the contractors looking to try and regain some of those. But I'm gonna let Jay give us a few examples of what he's working on at the moment and share some of his advice. So Jay, I'll hand over to you.
Cheers, Alex. You know, before I even start, I was having lunch today with a lady. Don't time my 6 minutes on this, please, Alex. This lady is a building sustainability consultant, and she was basically just venting at me because 2 of her clients haven't been looking at the they're buying sites with planning. They're not looking at the planning conditions well enough, and she's complaining because these planning conditions are very energy onerous about either the specific requirements of the boilers or the PV panels or whatever they've spec'd or been stated in the planning condition. And the developers are buying these buildings and thinking that can add additional value by doing some VE, but she's just basically venting at me because all that VE is being done already. Anyway, just the top tip there before we even kick off is yeah, just have a reread of planning conditions, because a lot of the local authorities are changing their requirements and getting a bit more stricter on what they're stating up front. Right.
Right.
I'll stop it at that, but I'll start really now. I'll kick it off with what I'm going to be talking about. So Quantum Experts, Alex has given me a lovely introduction. We're experts in resolving construction dispute. We also do a bit of non-contentious works as well, with either QSing or PMing on site or before we even go to tender. My biggest thing I'm going to say to everybody is records, records, records. The more records you have, the better you are going to be protected, the better information you're going to be able to help defend your case later on the line, and then to push back to contractors. But obviously the balance with the additional record keeping is additional administration and additional fees that may go along with that, or your own personal time. So you've got to trade it off, but records is where we start. Records is where we help to defend your cases. So the fundamental principle in the whole of the dispute world is the burden of proof. It basically means those who are seeking the assistance of the law, they have to prove their claim first before the other party can even start representing or defending their case. So basically the honest lies with the party putting their case forward to present the allegation, to present the facts, present the records in the correct manner. And this is what sort of leads me into what we exactly do. As quantum experts, we act as expert witnesses in quantum and delay matters. And just so you guys are really understanding what that means is we classify ourselves as experts who are, we're professionals in our specialist field. We've got extensive skills and experience on sites and the subject matter. Like we've been on, between I think us 3 main partners, we must have around about 60 years of on-site knowledge. The expert has to be independent in their thinking, and they need to make sure that expert, whoever you get on board, stays within their swimming lane or within their specialist field. You know, a quantity surveyor can add up bricks and tell you how much those bricks are. He's not necessarily going to be the best person to tell you the quality of the bonding that they did. That then falls into somebody else, an architect, for example. And the last thing an expert has to be independent with their overriding duty to the courts. So something else that an expert, I would say about experts, is that if they don't properly have the correct information provided to them, they can't do their job. They can't state it's X amount of pounds or Y amount of weeks delayed. So this, it's just restating the same thing I said earlier on. It's records, records, records. So I do want to explain, there's a few types of experts you can have. Fundamentally, there's three: a court appointed, a party appointed, or a single joint. Each one of them, they have to produce and give their reports to the court, to the parties. But what I do want to talk about is a party appointed expert. So that's where both parties, the defendant and the claimant, get together and they instruct a single joint expert. Sorry, I want talking about a single joint expert. Single joint experts is where two parties get together and they employ one person, one expert, one firm to undertake the work. Now, I personally like that the most because it's effectively both parties agreeing to one person, agreeing to that one person to look at X, Y, and Z of the case and to give their expert opinion on that only. Whereas when you have the other process where you've got two parties appointing their own independent experts, those independent experts end up having to pay, do their own reports, and then come together sometimes to give a joint statement. But the best way is a single joint expert, if you can get there. And now what I mean, if you can get there, it basically means you have to agree your instruction super clear with the other parties. Now, we've got a case at the moment where one party is telling me I need to look at the contract works. The other party is saying I need to look at the contract works plus the variations, plus all these other costs and all these other items that they're thrown. Fundamentally, they're both come to me with two different lists that I have to review, but they can't agree on that. We're already at a dispute because they can't even agree on what was actually done on site. And what they want is us to come along and tell them how much it cost, how much extra money is being paid, and effectively giving a final account resolution. Now, putting an expert witness aside, there is the other thing you can do is appoint an expert advisor. Now, they don't have necessarily a duty to the courts, but what they effectively do is provide you an opinion on the matter based on, once again, the records provided to them. I will say that, look, we're always happy to give anybody, especially trusted land members, a free 30-minute consultation if you wish. There's many ways you can resolve a dispute. I always say avoid them by even entering or starting them in the first place, and just build your site data up. Build a picture, a monthly picture, a fortnightly picture of what's happening. Make sure, even if it's the responsibility of the contractor to do that, he's producing that to you. If he's not doing that, do the same back onto them. I think I'll keep it at that, Alex, because I can probably spend another 10 minutes talking about other processes of dispute resolution, adjudication, mediation. There's a lot out there, but I would just say always try and stay away from it. Stay away from it as much as you can, and use it as a last result. And try and make sure you've got that evidence, you've got that records, and everything's just crystal clear before you even get to any problems.
Jay, I'm going to jump in and ask a bit of a silly question. When you say records, what are you referring to exactly? Are you talking about simply your initial contractual work, ongoing conversations, or are you talking about something more in depth?
Everything's a record. We've got in fact, a lot of people will know this person, but then the long story short is this guy, if he had called us in 6 months before the dispute arose, we could have helped him build a case up and put together his files, put together a system of emailing weekly, or a system of reporting, doing site pictures, and doing the most simplest thing, going into PowerPoint and doing a photo album, and every week sharing that. Sharing the same picture from the same angle over as a what do you call it, like a time-lapse picture. That's a very good record. Records of when you're issuing variations and actually the contractor acknowledging them and then doing them as you've stated. Just everything you're doing on site should be picked up, but it's such a tricky job to do because how many components make up a building site or a building? There's thousands and thousands. Not everybody has the time to sit there and count every single item. So you've got to take what's the best approach for you, how much time you're allocating, how much admin resource you have as well. But photos are always the best. I always say is the key one there.
And Jay, is it a record if it sits only on your side, or do you have to have it signed off by the other party, by a contractor for your subcontractors?
It's best practice to share it. Nothing should be hidden.
Okay.
I mean, you can keep a record on your side, but it's still best practice to share it with everybody.
Okay. Jay, thank you very much. I would encourage anybody on this call who wants to explore their options or just get some advice and clarity on anything Jay's mentioned today to reach out to him. You can obviously chat to him through the Zoom platform here today. Jay will hopefully hang around for a minute or two at the end of the session when we open up the breakout rooms at 5 p.m.